Russia never envisioned a time when it would have to worry about protecting its own skies. After all, who could have predicted it? When Vladimir Putin launched his massive campaign into Ukraine in February 2022, Ukraine lacked the means to strike back with precision. It seemed destined to be a swift victory, planned to end within days. But the unexpected happened. Nearly 4 years later, Ukraine's long-range strikes are more frequent, more accurate, and more devastating than ever before. Now, the picture is shifting dramatically. Russia's air defenses, once seen as nearly impenetrable, are crumbling before our eyes. The skies that once kept Putin secure are slipping, and the pain is unmistakable. According to Yevhen Diki, a seasoned former commander in Ukraine's Aidar battalion, this winter of 2025 will mark an unprecedented turning point for Russia. For the first time, Russia will face an enemy whose long-range assault capabilities match its own defenses in scale and ferocity. Diki warns that Ukraine has systematically dismantled Russia's once formidable air defense network, reducing it to a shadow of its former strength. The upcoming winter is described as the first symmetric winter, where Ukraine's strikes are met with an almost equal interception rate by Russia. And what is the proof? The shocking series of strikes on Moscow itself. Did you know? Ukrainian drones are now operating systematically inside the Russian capital. Just recently, Ukraine managed a daring attack on a major oil refinery only 75 miles from the Kremlin. Fire erupted, and the station switched to backup power, all in the dead of winter. Remarkably, Moscow's regional governor confirmed the attack, blaming debris from drones, a story we've heard before. But how could debris cause such extensive damage? Transformers of about 670 square feet were set ablaze, targets that seemed to demand precise hits, not just fragments. And the strikes aren't isolated. Earlier this month, parts of the Moscow region plunged into darkness after Ukrainian drones targeted critical power infrastructure. Streetlights flickered out, streets fell silent, and residents froze in the cold darkness. Russia's official narrative claims emergency grid failures, but intelligence reports tell a different story. Ukrainian drones, operating with increasing sophistication, are systematically squeezing Russia's defenses. It's not just Moscow. Deep inside Russian territory, strikes have penetrated more than 800 miles into the heart of Russia. These audacious moves, powered by domestically produced drones, are causing chaos and embarrassment at the highest levels of government. Ukraine's ability to strike deep inside Russia turns the tide of the war, exposing vulnerabilities that Moscow desperately tried to ignore for years. The big question looms: how is Ukraine achieving this? The answer is staggering. Ukraine has ramped up drone production to around 4 million annually, including 30,000 long-range models. With emerging missiles like Neptune, Kyiv hones a precision weaponry arsenal capable of targeting key military and infrastructure hubs across Russia. The sheer scale and capability of their drone fleet now mirror the tactics once favored by Russia, overwhelming diminishing Russian air defenses through relentless saturation. Ukraine's strategy is simple but devastating: exhaust Russia's last defenses until they are overwhelmed. As Diki explains, these tactics have turned against Russia. Their defense systems, once deemed invincible, are now buckling under the relentless storm of drones. The rival strategy, severe overload, has begun to compromise Russia's operational capacity. Meanwhile, Russia fights a losing battle. Its new defense perimeter around Moscow grows, with 21 sites outside the city, yet most are concentrated to the south, leaving large swaths of the Moscow Oblast exposed. A region covering over 44,000 square miles, yet only a small fraction is protected. The city itself may be shielded, the outskirts are vulnerable. Why? Perhaps Putin's focus is on the capital, his shield from internal and external threats. But in doing so, the vast Moscow region remains exposed to the relentless currents of Ukrainian drones. This strategic oversight could be the most costly mistake of the war. As the skies fill with electronic warfare devices and state-of-the-art missile systems, the truth remains clear: Russia's once unassailable defenses are failing. The more drones Ukraine launches, the more battered Russia's defenses become. And with each strike, whether on oil refineries, power stations, or military logistics hubs, the world witnesses a new balance of power. The hope was that Russia's defenses could hold. But the relentless capacity of Ukraine's precision strikes now turns the narrative on its head. The coming months will reveal how the Kremlin responds. Will they innovate faster? Or will Ukraine's growing aerial arsenal push the defenses to the breaking point? This winter may finally determine who truly controls the skies, leaving behind a question that echoes through the cold, dark nights: how long can Russian defenses hold when faced with such unyielding assault? In the shadow of what was once an unstoppable force, Russia's air defenses now lie in tatters, crumbling under the weight of Ukraine's relentless pounding. What hidden nightmare lurks in the skies of Moscow, turning the tables on Putin's iron grip? Imagine the acrid stench of burning fuel mingling with the frantic beep of alarms, as flames licked at colossal transformers the size of small houses, each one spanning 65 square meters, or about 670 square feet. It's no accident that Ukrainian drones now roam freely inside Moscow, Diki claims. And this revelation hits just as Ukraine strikes again, blasting a Russian oil refinery deep in the city. Feel the rumble of explosions vibrating through the ground, the bitter taste of smoke on your tongue. Just 2 days before the report aired, Reuters revealed Ukraine's drones piercing the defenses to hit a power and heat station in Moscow's region. The Shatura station, a mere 120 kilometers east of the Kremlin, erupted in chaos. Did Russia's vaunted shields really crumble so easily? Mobile heaters rolled in as backups kicked on, their generators humming like defeated warriors. Governor Andrei Vorobyov admitted it, yet he spun the tired tale of drone debris falling harmlessly. Air defenses down some, he said, a few scraps landing, sparking fires that are now under control. But how does mere debris ignite 3 massive transformers? The shatter of glass, the crackle of wires, debris doesn't target like that. It humiliates, exposing Russia's pathetic cover-up. This wasn't isolated fury. It joined a brutal string of assaults on Moscow's oblast, stripping residents of warmth and light. Early November, RBC Ukraine reported how October 31st plunged much of it into absolute darkness. Picture streets swallowed by ink, no streetlights piercing the void, just silence broken by distant engines. Russia stayed silent, local outlets muttering about grid hiccups. Yet drones buzzed over Moscow hours before, visible to all. Ukrainian machines tore through Russia's failing barriers, snuffing out electricity. The equation isn't rocket science, it's raw domination reversed. Russia scoffed, calling it a fluke, local grids failing on their own. But witnesses spotted drones approaching, their shadows lengthening like harbingers of doom. Uncovered titanium fragments betrayed the truth: Ukraine's mark on Moscow's blackout. Diki didn't exaggerate, this symmetry bites hard. As The Independent noted on November 5, these strikes humiliate the Kremlin, unnerving its people. Drones forged in Ukraine slash 1,300 kilometers into Russia, hitting plants and hubs. The smell of scorched factories, the tremble of collapsing war efforts, it's payback for almost 4 years. Auditors assault factories, refineries, logistics, jamming Putin's machine. Ukraine wasn't equipped to strike back in February 2022. Now, it churns out about 4 million drones yearly, including 30,000 long-rangers, plus missiles like Neptune. Precision evolved into avalanche tactics, overwhelming Russia's thin defenses just as Russia once ravaged Ukraine. Diki nails it: we do to them what they did to us, exhaust their safeguards till they can't handle it. The Atlantic Council called Russia victorious in drone wars by mid-2025, but that shifted. Russia's resources flooded Ukraine with 5,300 drones in November alone, 171 per day. Ukraine shot down over 4,200, but at just 80% success, the tide turned. Dread built as waves hit cities, defenses cracking. Yet Ukraine mirrors it, proving Russian skies are just as fractured. On October 27, UAW Weekly reported Moscow's new defenses, 21 sites up to 50 kilometers out, S-300 and S-400 tiers fortified with radars and jammers. Another 13 ring Valdai, near Putin's hideout. These beasts guard Moscow's core, but what of the vast oblast? Spanning 44,000 square kilometers, the city just 5%, it stretches vulnerable. Putin shields himself, leaving suburbs exposed to despair. Wire defenses clumped southward, cities like Shatura unguarded. Practicality or panic? Russia's strength wanes, winter 2025 promising symmetry's cruel eye. Feel the icy grip as Ukrainian hordes break through, firing unanswered shots. What will survive the storm, power or pride? The crunch of ice under boots, the howl of winds carrying whispers of reversal. Will Russia hold its skies, or crumble into whispers? As Ukraine pushes, the balance teeters, bombs away in the heartland. The electric snap of circuits failing, the cold seep of unanswered strikes. Edge to edge, victory slips from Putin's fingers. And now, the wild twist: what if these drones target not just power, but the throne itself? The distant roar approaches. Who's next in the line of fire? Russia never imagined its own skies in peril. What now, as Ukrainian strikes pierce deep into its heart? Imagine the roar of drones slicing through icy winter air. The shiver of fear gripping Moscow's residents. Vladimir Putin's grip slipping. Ukraine's long-range attacks now rival Russia's in frequency and accuracy. A humiliating reversal after years of dominance. Russia feels the sting. Its air defense is crumbling under relentless blows. Former Ukrainian commander Yevhen Diki speaks out boldly. This winter 2025 marks a grim first. A symmetric siege where defenses falter equally. Ukraine's strikes prove it. Searing hits on transformers. Fires raging. Heat vanishing. Proving old claims of merely debris absurd. Streets engulfed in pitch-black voids. No lights, no warmth. The acrid scent of smoke lingering. The touch of cold metal from fallen drones. Russia's denials crumbling like shattered glass. Is it coincidence? Diki asks. As drones swarm systematically, penetrating 1,300 kilometers, about 800 miles, deep into Russia's core, causing untold embarrassment to the Kremlin. Officials silent on damage. Populace unnerved by the audacity. Strikes on factories, oil refineries, logistic hubs. Targeting Russia's war efforts 4 years on. Ukraine's homegrown drones pivotal. From 0 in 2022 to 4 million annually. 30,000 long-range ones. Plus emerging projectiles like Neptune. Building an arsenal of precision tools. The scale overwhelming. Tactics mirrored from Russia's own playbook. Exhausting dwindling defenses. As Diki warns, this is how they've tormented us. Now, Ukraine turns the tables. Symmetry born from swarms. Atlantic Council once hailed Russia winning the drone war. Quantity crushing Ukraine. 5,300 drones launched in November. Averages of 171 daily. Interceptions dropped to 80%. Lowest in months. Yet, Russia builds more defenses. 21 sites ring Moscow. Up to 50 kilometers out. 80% southward. MS-300 and MS-400 systems. Radar and jammers backing them. Another ring at Valdai. 13 more. 13 units. Protecting Putin. But who safeguards the vast Moscow Oblast? Over 44,000 square kilometers. Only tiny Moscow city covered. About 475 square kilometers urban, vulnerable outskirts screaming for attention. Why such neglect? Obsession with self-preservation? Or pure scarcity? Russia's resources stretched. As blackouts plague. Strikes hit oil in Moscow. Fires at Shatrovo station. 120 kilometers from Kremlin. Mobile heaters deployed. Backup power kicking in. Debris claims ring hollow. 3 massive transformers aflame. Each 65 square meters. Targets demanding full drone hits. Not mere fragments. Incidents multiply. Unnerving the populace. Embarrassing the leadership. KRYMSKY bridge attacks. No. This symmetry real. Humiliation building. Ukraine's industry thriving. Drones precision guided. Russia's skies no longer safe. What secrets hide in fading defenses? As winter's chill bites deeper. Could Russia's collapse accelerate? Or will a desperate twist shatter this balance? Have you ever imagined Russia, the mighty giant, crumbling under a swarm of buzzing shadows from Ukraine, right on its doorstep? Picture the cold winter air in Moscow, thick with the stench of burning transformers, a once invincible empire now scrambling to defend its heart. It's not fiction, it's happening. And today, we're diving deep into how Ukraine flipped the script on Putin's war machine, exhausting Russia's air defenses until they crack like fragile ice. Let's rewind. Ukraine wasn't just innovating, it's churning out around 4 million drones every year, including 30,000 long-range ones. Add in rising weapons like the Neptune missile, and suddenly, Moscow isn't safe anymore. Strikes hit deep, proving Russia's defenses are as vulnerable as Ukraine's ever were. Signs point to this truth. On October 27, reports showed Russia scrambling to build a new air defense ring around Moscow over 2 months. 21 sites sprang up, spread up to 50 kilometers away from the city. Most defenses 80% cluster south of Moscow, blending S-300 and S-400 systems with radar and electronic warfare tools. Another layer guards Putin's Valdai home, 13 more S-400 units, plus radar. But here's the gut-punch twist you've been waiting for. Russia obsessed over Moscow city limits, shielding just a tiny sliver of their vast backyard. What about the sprawling Moscow Oblast, stretching over 44,000 square kilometers? The city itself covers only 2,511 square kilometers, less than 1/8 of the region. Leaves everything else wide open, like an unguarded fortress door slamming shut on Putin's paranoia. Was this defense tweak mere vanity, or a desperate gamble? A provocative rumor whispers, Russia never fathomed Ukraine's strike power back in February 2022. Expecting a quick wrap-up, no need for home turf shields. Fast forward nearly 4 years, and Ukraine's hammer falls hard. Precision hits oil refineries, power plants, and now even Moscow's outskirts echo with explosions. The Shatura station 80 miles east of the Kremlin ignited in flames, black smoke choking the skies, forcing emergency heat mobiles as backups kicked in. Debris from those so-called intercepted Ukrainian drones? Please, they torched 3 massive transformers, each 70 square meters, turning a supposed localized fire into a chaotic blackout that plunged neighborhoods into pitch darkness. Feel the biting chill on skin, hear panicked whispers in the freezing streets, no power, no warmth. Russia's excuses crumble faster than snow under boots. 2 days later, drones pierced deep, Reuters confirming strikes on a heart and heat hub. Governor Andrei Vorobyev muttered, some drones destroyed, debris caused fire. Yeah, right. Embarrassment mounts at the Kremlin, strikes penetrating 1,300 kilometers, hitting factories, refineries, logistics, a war machine sputtering. Domestically built drones, tuned to disrupt, unnerve civilians. Independent reports on November 5 warned, audacious strikes, considerable embarrassment for Moscow. Feel that humiliation sting? Russia's populace feels it too, tension thick in the air like fog before a storm. Transitioning from Ukraine's booming drone empire, 4 million annual, 30,000 long-range, Neptune missiles fueling precision hits that expose Russia's fragility, we shift to a darker strategy mirror that's shattering illusions. Ever wondered how Ukraine turned the tables, turning Russia's swarm tactic into a boomerang of defeat? Imagine hordes of drones darkening the sky, a relentless hum drowning defenses in exhaustion. That's not hyperbole, it's symmetric horror. Ukraine's drone flood lets it mimic Russia, overwhelming weakened air defenses, depleting stockpiles until Russia's forces can't handle the load. Former Commander Yevgeny Daiky nailed it in a Radio NV talk. This is exactly what they do to us. We've exhausted their air defenses, they physically can't cope. Euromaidan press echoed those sharp words. He's spot on about Russia's playbook. That tactic worked brilliantly early in 2025, making Ukraine's innovations falter. Atlantic Council's July analysis declared, Russia winning the drone war, overwhelming Ukraine's defenses. Bigger resources, new models with upgrades, bombarding cities, terrifying civilians. Quantity crushed quality. Defense Security Monitor on November 14 revealed the numbers. Russia unleashed about 5,300 drones, averaging 171 a day. Ukraine intercepted over 4,280% rate, the year's low. Results? Russia's swarm stung deep. But Daiky argues Ukraine strikes back. Hordes proving Russia's defenses just as riddled. We're slamming their systems the way they've hit ours, defenses dwindling, intercept rates matching Ukraine's struggles. Winter 2025? First truly symmetric, a painful balance Russia's never faced. Ukraine leading, defenses paired to shadows. Longest range strikes now precise, frequent, not Russia's clunky attempts. Air defenses collapsed, skies lost to Putin. Daiky's interview with Radio NV painted it, Russia controlled the air war for years, now Ukraine equalizes. Euromedon press headline screened, but this will be the first symmetric winter. Proof? Moscow blasts systematic drone ops inside the city. Coincidence? No. Especially after refinery hits. Drones deep into Moscow region power hubs. Shatura firefighting, mobile heaters deployed. Vorobiev spin? Drone debris excuse, despite fires claiming huge transformers. Videos poured onto platforms, streets engulfed in darkness, emergency grid claims hiding the truth. Drones spotted before blackouts obvious link. RBC Ukraine reported October 31st power vanishes, locals in fear. No Russian admissions, just evasion. November 25th strikes added to the ache. Independent on November 5th, strikes embarrassing Kremlin, 1,300 kilometer depth. Domestically produced drones, unnerving populace. Shifting perspective, Russia underestimated, now reaping the whirlwind. Moscow air defenses over city focused, oblast wide open. Practical shortage? Systems stretched thin across vast lands. Symmetry real. Ukraine's scale exhausting Russia's remnants. Same tactic brought to bear. Feel the tremble in this seismic shift? Sounds of explosions, acrid smoke taste, ground vibrating under impact. Russia's invincible aura cracking wide. The winter looms, a brutal equalizer, with Ukraine's defenses roaring back stronger than ever. Will Putin plug the gaps, or watch his empire burn in the cold? Here's the chilling revelation: Russia's quantity edge isn't endless, Ukraine's precision surges could shatter it all. As strikes mount, will Moscow courts its skies again, or crumble under the weight of forgotten skies? What if Ukraine's swarm is the key to ending this? Imagine the echo fading, or growing louder. You know, Russia's once unshakable grip on the skies is crumbling under a relentless swarm of threats, forcing furious countermeasures that leave vast swaths of the homeland exposed. Imagine the bitter chill of Moscow's winter creeping in, not just from the snow, but from waves of precision strikes piercing defenses that were meant to be impenetrable. But is Vladimir Putin's fortress cracking faster than he admits? Now, to catch you up quickly, Ukraine may have lost ground in interception rates, shooting down over 4,200 of Russia's drones for an 80% success, a low for 2025. Still, Russia's drone swarms are overwhelming, yet Yevhen Diky insists Ukraine is turning the tables by mirroring that flood tactic against Russian defenses. Diky's words ring true in the chaos, proving Moscow's barriers are as fragile as a thin ice sheet under heavy boots. The signs? Cracks are emerging in Russia's fortified lines. On October 27, UAEA revealed startling news. Russia hustled to build a fresh ring of air shields around Moscow over 2 months. 21 new positions, stretching up to 50 kilometers, about 31 miles, from the city's heart. Chilling winds howl as these defenses rise from frozen grounds. The bulk? Clustered south of Moscow, 80% hunker there, like a panicked wall against an unseen storm. Core players, Russia's Pantsir S-300 and S-400 missiles, their roar echoing through radar pulses and electronic pulses, a symphony of disruption meant to shred any intruder. Yet, another layer guards Putin's Valdai stronghold. 13 Pantsirs, S-400s, and watchful radars. Impressive, sure, metallic giants humming with power. Ready to explode threats into smoking debris. But here's the gut punch. Most focus narrows to Moscow city itself, not the sprawling oblast it nests in. That's where the real cracks show. Both earlier strikes we covered hit the Moscow oblast, but just beyond this new shield's grasp. Putin seems obsessed with safeguarding his palace and the capital's core. Did he overlook the oblast's vastness? Over 44,000 square kilometers, nearly 17,000 square miles, yawn open like a vulnerable plain under starless skies. Moscow city? Barely 2,511 square kilometers within it, or 5,891 with the metro stretch. Pathetic, really less than 1/8 of the oblast shielded. Outside the city? Village hamlets and power hubs stand naked, trembling at approaching drones' distant buzz and oily fumes. We joked it was all about Putin's ego, his iron grip slipping. But maybe it's pragmatism, not paranoia, leaving suburbs shivering. Russia might simply lack the strength. The grit to stretch air defenses across such a frozen expanse. Pauses linger in the cold silence. Resources thin like melting snow. Could this weakness stem from depleted arsenals? Questions loom. Surface-to-air missiles, SAMs, run critically low, some sourced from North Korea, unreliable shadows of former glory. Deke warns they might not ignite properly. A hiss of failure in the engine's heat, a spark that fades into nothing. This vulnerability isn't isolated. Sweeping the oblast would demand more than metal and electronics. Russia's stocks dwindle, exposed in humiliating setbacks. Ukraine exploits it masterfully, swarming with hordes of unmanned birds. Each strike a feather-like touch, yet cumulatively crushing, like endless footsteps compacting fresh powder. The emotional toll mounts. Russian families huddle in darkened homes, the acrid scent of scorched transformers filling the air, those massive units, 65 square meters apiece, crackling under impact. Tangible fear grips, tactile in the rough fabric of hastily deployed heating trucks rumbling through snowy ruts. Deke's vision unfolds symmetrically now, this winter's balance a shocking twist. Russia, once the aggressor overwhelming Ukraine's skies, now reels equally. Opponent humiliated in mirror fashion, their defenses, a shadow, intercepted at rates matching what they once inflicted. Picture the unexpected irony. Moscow's lights flickering out, not from generator hum but drone shadows flitting overhead. Blackouts plunging streets into void. Sensory assault, bitter frost nipping skin, echoes of emergency vehicles wailing, while officials spin tales of localized glitches. But evidence screams louder. Videos flood digital veins, drones slicing kilometers deep, 1,300 of them, 800 miles into Russia. Embarrassment burns like a public slap to the Kremlin's face, populace unnerved by tremors. Ukraine's homemade fleets soar, producing millions annually, 30,000 long-range beasts among them. Emerging arrows like Neptune missiles add sting, a growing arsenal for surgical cuts. Yet scale tips the war's balance. Russia flooded Ukraine, exhausting defenses. Now Kiev reciprocates, a vengeful echo leveling the field. Deke articulates the satiety, we've mirrored their swarm. Worn their shields thin. Physically unable to deflect. Earlier assessments flipped Russia winning the drone duel through volume. But in November, Defense Security Monitor tallied Russia's barrage, 5,300 drones, 171 daily. Ukraine intercepted 4,200, lowest 80% clip in 2025. Russia gleans in terror tactics. Ukraine, though, adapts. Proving symmetry sting. Can Russia halt this erosion? Or does humiliation deepen as winter tightens? Watch for twists in the frost-laden air. What if this exposure invites bolder strikes, turning Putin's unbreakable into brittle facade? The cycle spins on a cliffhanger in the cold, with defenses frayed and strikes relentless, Russia's heartland quakes, awaiting spring's uncertain thaw. Russia never envisioned a scenario where their own skies could become a battlefield. When Vladimir Putin launched the invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, it was believed that Ukrainian forces lacked the capacity for long-range strikes. The hope was that the conflict would be over in days. But that hope shattered quickly. Nearly 4 years later, Ukraine's precision strikes have become relentless, catching Russia off guard. Their long-range capabilities now match, or even surpass, the firepower Russia thought was unmatched. The pain is mounting, Russia's air defenses are faltering, exposing vulnerabilities that once seemed impossible. Yevhen Deke, a former Ukrainian military commander, warns that the upcoming winter of 2025 could see a historic shift. For the first time in this fierce conflict, Russia's defenses are beginning to crumble under the weight of Ukraine's determined assault. Deke emphasizes that Ukraine has carefully dismantled Russia's once formidable air shield, bringing it down to a shadow of its former strength. What does this mean? It means Ukraine is already making a mockery of Russia's claims of dominance. Their long-range attacks are now striking with devastating precision, day after day. The recent comments from Deke suggest that Russia's air defenses are now so strained that they intercept Ukrainian drones at approximately the same rate Ukraine intercepts Russian projectiles. The situation reaches a shocking new level with incidents that shake the nation's core. Ukrainian drones are now routinely operating inside Moscow itself. Just days before the report, a massive strike occurred on a key oil refinery in the outskirts of the capital. Fire erupted, thick smoke billowing into the cold winter sky, while emergency crews scrambled to extinguish the flames. The blast was so powerful that it knocked out vital transformers, plunging nearby areas into darkness and chaos. The official explanation? Drones fell on our facilities, states the regional governor, trying to downplay the seriousness. But the debris from those drones caused fires that destroyed transformers covering large areas, enough to cripple major parts of Moscow's power grid. Why is this happening now? Because Ukraine's drone factories are working overtime, churning out hundreds of thousands each year. They're building around 4 million drones annually, including 30,000 long-range models. Combining that with advanced missiles like the Neptune, Ukraine can aim directly at Moscow and beyond, striking deep into Russian territory. Russia, stunned by these developments, finds itself fighting a war of attrition it can't sustain. Their air defenses, once their strongest asset, are now being overwhelmed. While Russia's forces claim to have fortified their skies with new perimeter defenses, they missed the bigger picture. The vast expanse of the Moscow region remains exposed. The focus on protecting only Moscow and Putin's residents reveals a dangerous oversight. The city of Moscow is shielded by a vast network of anti-aircraft systems, yet the surrounding oblast, covering over 17,000 square miles, remains largely unguarded. This oversight leaves critical targets vulnerable. And recent strikes confirm it. Ukrainian drones have struck power stations, triggering blackouts across the region and disrupting everyday life. As the winter approaches, the question persists: how long can Russia sustain its collapsing defenses? With resources stretched thin, their missile stockpile could be depleted by early next year, according to military analysts. This creates a window of opportunity for Ukraine, a chance to escalate their strikes, intensify pressure on Russian industry, and perhaps tip the balance of this brutal conflict. The reality of Russia's crumbling defenses is evident. Thousands of anti-aircraft systems have been destroyed inside Ukraine and occupied territories, over 1,200 units, according to Ukrainian authorities. The attrition rate is staggering, forcing Russia to divert dwindling defenses into increasingly dangerous regions. Their once impenetrable shield is cracking, exposing vulnerabilities that Kiev is eager to exploit. As the winter deepens, the question remains: how much longer can Russia keep up this defensive facade? And what happens when their air defenses are finally exhausted? The stakes have never been higher. The battlefield is no longer just about weapons and tactics, but about survival in a war where every system, every missile, and every drone counts. Russia never believed it would face the nightmare of defending its own airspace from within. When Vladimir Putin launched his assault on Ukraine in early 2022, the idea seemed almost laughable. Ukraine lacked the military strength, especially in missile and drone technology, to threaten Russia directly. The plan was supposed to wrap up swiftly, days at most. But the plan unraveled, and 4 years later, the reality is starkly different. Ukraine's long-range strikes have become more frequent, more precise, and more destructive than anything Russia anticipated. Now, Moscow is feeling the sting of its overconfidence. Its once mighty air defenses crumble under the relentless and increasingly sophisticated onslaught. The commander of a Ukrainian combat unit recently declared that the upcoming winter could mark a historic turning point. For the first time in nearly 4 years, Russia's skies are no longer heavily fortified. Instead, they are nearly as vulnerable as Ukraine's, thanks to the country's reduced defenses. This pandemic of vulnerability is becoming glaringly evident. Ukrainian drones now infiltrate Moscow itself. They operate systematically inside the heart of Russia's capital, striking key targets such as energy and power facilities. Just recently, Ukrainian drones deep inside Moscow set fire to a major power station only 120 kilometers from the Kremlin, an act that would have been unimaginable in February 2022. The regional governor confirmed the attack, citing debris and fires, yet spun it as a minor malfunction. But the damage was real: transformers ablaze, critical infrastructure compromised. Residents left in the cold and darkness. In the Moscow region, strikes against power plants have plunged large areas into darkness, with reports dating back to late October. Streets turned black and silent, save for the distant hum of emergency generators. The region's officials insisted these outages were accidental, but evidence suggests otherwise. Drones approaching Moscow in the hours before outages, combined with confirmed strikes on nearby facilities, paint a different picture. It's no coincidence Ukrainian drones plus deteriorating Russian defenses equal chaos and widespread blackouts. As Ukraine escalates its attacks, the Kremlin is desperate to hide the embarrassment. A recent drone infiltration reached nearly 800 miles deep into Russian territory, targeting strategic installations. These bold, domestically produced devices are causing discomfort at the highest levels, revealing cracks in Russia's once formidable military shield. The Kremlin dismisses these as isolated incidents, but behind closed doors, alarms are ringing. And it's not just local infrastructure, the long-range reach of Ukrainian drones is beginning to entertain a disturbing question: could Russia's defenses become so thin that it loses its ability to protect even critical territories? The answer seems to be leaning towards yes. Russia has been forced to establish new defense perimeters, deploying dozens of new missile sites around Moscow and the surrounding oblast, yet most focus solely on protecting the city itself. Outside these zones, in the vast expanse of the countryside, defenses are weaker, more spread out, and increasingly ineffective. The implications are staggering. The entire eastern frontier, the strategic heart of Russia's energy infrastructure, its refineries and military command centers, are now more exposed than ever. Ukrainian strikes have hit these targets repeatedly, choking Russia's fuel supplies and crippling its military capacity. The resilience that once allowed Russia to dominate its skies is evaporating at a rapid pace. In this brutal war of attrition, the balance has shifted. Ukraine's innovative drone manufacturing now produces around 4 million units annually, including approximately 30,000 long-range drones capable of paralyzing far-flung targets. Meanwhile, Russia's dwindling stockpiles of missiles and defenses are being overwhelmed by swarms of unmanned aerial vehicles. Ukrainian tactics mirror Russia's own mass production, saturation, and it's working. The battle for the skies has become a mirror image. Ukraine's drone fleets are now forcing Russia into a corner, exhausted and stretched thin. The once mighty Russian air defenses, which were believed unbreakable, are now matching Ukraine's efforts, shot for shot. Former military commanders state that Russia's defenses are collapsing under the weight of continuous assault. The recent internal leak by a security journal underscores this crisis. Ukraine has launched nearly 160 successful strikes against Russia's vital oil refineries alone. These targeted operations are not accidental, they are calculated, strategic blows designed to weaken the backbone of Russia's military and energy infrastructure. If this trend persists, the driving question remains: how much longer can Russia hold? Its defenses are shrinking, its critical facilities under threat, and the resilience it once boasted about seems like a distant memory. The war is no longer one-sided, it's a mirror reflecting the relentless resilience of Ukraine, turning the tide of a conflict that once seemed decided in Moscow's favor. Will Russia's skies fall completely, or can it find an unexpected way to stop the relentless march of Ukraine's unmanned offensive? The outcome hangs in the balance. Russia never imagined that its own skies would become a battleground of precision strikes from within. When Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, expectations were simple: Ukraine lacked the means for effective retaliation. They believed the conflict would end in days. But reality shattered those illusions. For years into this relentless war, Ukraine's long-range weaponry now challenges Russia's once unbreakable air defenses. Ukrainian drones and missiles are not only reaching deep into Russian territory, they're hitting vital targets with increasing frequency and accuracy. Russia's skin is starting to peel away, revealing a vulnerable underbelly. Yevhen Diki, a seasoned former Ukrainian military commander, warns that this winter marks a turning point. For the first time, Russia will face an equal challenge, what he calls a symmetric winter. The disparity in air defense capabilities, which once gave Russia dominance, is shrinking fast. Ukraine's strikes are now matching Russian intercepts, leaving Moscow's defenses stretched thin and overwhelmed. The evidence is clear. The recent blast in Moscow was no accident. Ukrainian drones have systematically infiltrated the heart of Russia's capital at targets invisible to many outside the military circles. The Shatora power station, just 75 miles east of the Kremlin, was hit with a devastating fire, knocking out critical transformers. The aftermath radiates a sense of vulnerability, a quiet fear creeping into the corridors of power. And it's not an isolated incident. Subsequent strikes have plunged parts of Moscow into darkness, cutting electricity and heating for thousands. As the city falls silent, the smell of burnt insulation and the distant wail of sirens become the haunting soundtrack of a new reality. But how is Ukraine achieving this? The answer lies in technological mastery and sheer relentless production. Over nearly 4 years, Ukraine has turned into a drone manufacturing powerhouse, producing around 4 million drones annually. Among them, the revolutionary FP-1 long-range drone and the FP-5 rocket system have proven to be game-changers. They've scored dozens of strikes targeting energy hubs, military assets, and industrial sites all deep behind enemy lines. The scale of Ukraine's manufacturing is staggering. With 30,000 long-range drones in its arsenal, the country can sustain a relentless barrage. Russia's defenses, once formidable, are buckling under the weight. Their dwindling air defenses struggle to cope with the onslaught of drone waves, especially as Ukraine adapts and innovates. Russia's strategy was simple: overwhelm Ukraine's shrinking defenses through sheer numbers. It worked temporarily, but now the tables are turning. Recent reports indicate that Moscow has doubled, even tripled, its air defense perimeter around key regions, including 21 new sites around Moscow itself. Yet, these defenses are concentrated mainly on the city and the Kremlin, leaving vast areas of the surrounding oblast vulnerable. Large swaths of the Moscow region remain exposed, with the city itself protected while the outskirts suffer relentless assault. The stark truth is that Putin's focus on shielding the capital and himself has left the rest of the region vulnerable. The Moscow Oblast covers over 44,000 square kilometers, yet only a fraction is protected by these new defenses. Most of the region remains open to attack. Ukrainian drones have flashed through gaps, striking power stations and military facilities, turning Moscow's silence into chaos. The question remains, how long can Russia sustain its defenses when they are so focused on a small, strategic core? As the war continues, Ukraine's technological edge grows sharper. Its drones deliver not just blows, but a message, a challenge to Russia's dominance and invincibility. This winter could finally see the emergence of a new battlefield dynamic, one where the mighty become vulnerable, and the underestimated become unstoppable. The hidden war inside Russian skies is only just beginning, and its outcome could reshape their very perception of power. Russia once believed its air defenses were unstoppable within its own territory. When Vladimir Putin launched the Ukraine invasion in February 2022, it seemed a straightforward victory was imminent. Ukraine had no means to challenge Russia's aerial might. However, nearly 4 years later, that illusion shattered. Ukraine's long-range strikes have grown more precise, frequent, and devastating. Russia now faces a harsh reality: its once dominant sky control is collapsing before its eyes. Yevhen Diki, a former Ukrainian military commander, warns us that this winter marks a turning point. For the first time in many years, Russia's air defense advantage is crumbling, a mirror image of Ukraine's resilience. This season, Ukraine is striking back with a fury, eroding Russia's defenses day by day. The signs are undeniable. The recent Moscow blast, a surprising incident, hints at a new era of vulnerability. Ukrainian drones are now operating systematically within Russia's capital, making the once impenetrable city tremble. Just 2 days before, reports flooded social media: a power station in Moscow's outskirts was hit. Flames lit up the night sky. The station's transformers, each about the size of a small house, caught fire from seemingly insignificant debris. How could tiny pieces cause such chaos? The answer lies in Ukraine's precise tactics, utilizing drones capable of deep strikes. Moscow's regional governor admitted that Ukrainian drones caused the fire, a confession that shocked many. This attack wasn't isolated, it followed waves of power outages across the region, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness, silencing the city's heartbeat. Despite Russia's denials, evidence piled up. Witnesses described the drone approaches, the heat of the explosions, the smell of burnt electrical components. It was a relentless assault. The ongoing pattern leaves little doubt: Ukraine's drone arsenal is now an unstoppable force, piercing Russia's once formidable defenses. And these are not just small incidents. A recent operation saw Ukrainian drones penetrate 800 miles into Russian territory, hitting vital factories and logistics hubs, rattling the Kremlin's nerves. Meanwhile, Russia's response has been pitiful. Struggling to mount effective countermeasures, Russia's mobile air defense units are nothing more than convoys of soldiers manning outdated guns. A viral photo showed a makeshift unit parked near the Kremlin, an embarrassing sight. The hilarious part? Those soldiers had no real chance against Ukraine's advanced drone swarms. Their crude defenses are quickly becoming irrelevant. The core issue? Ukraine's strategy is no longer just about building better weapons. It's about overwhelming Russian defenses through sheer volume and skill. With the production of roughly 4 million drones annually, including around 30,000 long-range models, Ukraine effectively mirrors Russia's tactics. Every attack chips away at Russia's remaining technological edge. Now, drone strikes are hitting not just military targets but critical infrastructure, crippling power and transportation across vast regions. The once clear dominance in aerial warfare has turned into an even battle. Ukraine's defenders, by relentlessly eroding Russian air defenses, have achieved a shocking level of parity. As Diki explains, this symmetry isn't a sign of weakness but a deliberate putting of Moscow on the back foot. Russia's retaliatory efforts are weak and poorly coordinated. Its new perimeter defenses around Moscow are impressive, but they miss the major vulnerabilities, the vast, unprotected expanses of the Moscow Oblast, which stretches over 17,000 square miles. Most defenses are focused inward, protecting only the city itself. Less than 1/8 of the entire region is shielded by these systems. Drones can easily strike the unprotected outskirts. The feeling of vulnerability creeps in. You can almost hear the buzzing of incoming craft, the faint crackle of electronic signals, a stark contrast to the deafening silence of a city unprepared. How long can Russia keep its fragile defense line intact? And more chillingly, what does this mean for the future of this conflict? The gasps of hope are fading. Ukraine's relentless technological innovation, combined with its massive drone production, has neutralized Russia's once unassailable aerial advantage. The landscape of this war has shifted dramatically. It's no longer a matter of quantity versus quality but a brutal balancing act where the attacker holds the upper hand. The question remains, how long can Moscow cling to its diminishing defenses before they are shattered completely? Russia never imagined it would have to concern itself with how it deployed its own air defenses on its territory. When Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, few anticipated the scenario now unfolding. Back then, Ukraine lacked the capabilities to threaten Russia with strikes. Even if it could, the broader assumption was the war would end swiftly. Yet, nearly 4 years later, the tide has turned dramatically. Ukraine's long-range strikes have become increasingly precise and frequent, more so than Russia's own efforts. Now, Russia faces a harsh reality: its once impenetrable skies are collapsing under the weight of Ukrainian resilience. The country's air defenses, once formidable, are unraveling, exposing vulnerabilities no one predicted. Yevhen Diki, a former Ukrainian military leader, paints a stark picture. During a recent interview with Radio NV, he declared that the winter of 2025 will mark an unprecedented chapter for Russia, a winter where its defenses fight to hold their ground. This is the first time since the conflict's start that Ukraine's long-range assaults threaten to meet Russia's defenses on equal footing. Diki claims Ukraine's recent strikes across the country reveal a chilling truth: Moscow's aerial shield is weakening. Even the bombings inside Moscow itself aren't mere accidents anymore, they're deliberate messages, systematic disruptions that echo through the Russian heartland. On November 25, reports emerged that Ukrainian drones had targeted key infrastructure deep inside Moscow, hitting a power station just 75 miles from the Kremlin. The fire erupted suddenly, metal screeches, smoke spirals into the cold air, disrupting heat and power for thousands. Despite official claims that debris caused only minor damage, the truth whispers loudly. Transformers, each sprawling over 65 square meters, don't fall by chance. They're the direct result of precise drone strikes, not mere fragments of wreckage. The region's residents faced blackouts, streets plunged into darkness, the icy silence broken only by the crackling of power outages and the distant hum of emergency crews. Earlier that month, even more alarming reports surfaced. Power outages spread across the Moscow region, leaving entire areas in darkness. Video showed empty streets, unlit and eerily silent, no cars, no voices, just the icy stillness of winter's grip. Though Russian officials spun stories of accidents and grid failures, evidence pointed to Ukraine's drones. Witnesses saw debris on the ground before the outages, drones, perhaps, the size of small cars, hitting targets with deadly accuracy. The connection was clear: Ukrainian unmanned systems are now breaching even Russia's best defenses. The once intact shield over Moscow begins to crack, exposing vulnerabilities hidden beneath its formidable surface. This isn't a coincidence. It's a calculated escalation. The pattern repeats across Russia's regions: power plants, fuel depots, military logistics hubs, all struck with precision. A drone here, a fire there, each attack erodes Russia's confidence, each blackout sows chaos among civilians. The Kremlin's attempts to dismiss these as isolated incidents fail against the mounting evidence. Ukrainian drones are erasing Russia's illusions of invincibility, one city at a time. The numbers tell a grim story for Russia. Despite deploying advanced systems like the S-300 and S-400, their defenses are stretched thin. Recently, reports detailed the creation of 21 new defense sites around Moscow, located up to 50 miles away. Most focus on protecting the city itself, leaving the wider Moscow Oblast, sprawling over 44,000 square kilometers, vulnerable. The city proper occupies just a tiny fraction, less than a tenth of the region's area. This miscalculation leaves vast swaths unprotected, open to surprise strikes. It's as if Putin's focus is solely on shielding himself and the capital. Why overlook the wider region? Perhaps because the sheer size makes comprehensive coverage impossible. Or maybe, deep down, the Kremlin fears the truth that since their defenses are faltering, they can't safeguard the entire territory effectively. Each new drone attack reveals that Russia's air shield is no longer a barrier but a fragile illusion. Now, imagine the bitter winter ahead. Cut off from fuel, water, and warmth, millions of Russian citizens will face chills and darkness. Meanwhile, Ukraine's relentless drones press on, targeting infrastructure, crippling supply lines, disorienting the enemy. The resilience of the Ukrainian people and their military is extraordinary. Despite the chaos and devastation, they push forward. Ukraine has begun deploying an unprecedented defense system, the Terahot Paladin, the first of its kind designed specifically to neutralize Russia's long-range drone threats. This weapon promises to turn the tide yet again. Will it succeed where others have faltered? As Ukraine innovates and adapts, Russia's once assuming dominance crumbles beneath relentless assaults. The question looms, what unexpected twist lies ahead in this relentless game of aerial cat and mouse? The outcome remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: both sides are now locked in a battle where no one is truly safe, and the sky itself is becoming a battlefield of shocking proportions. Russia never expected it would have to worry about how it deploys its air defenses on its own home territory. When Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, no one thought it would last this long. Ukraine lacked the means to launch serious strikes back then. Many believed the military operation would end within days. Yet, nearly 4 years later, Ukraine's long-range strikes are becoming more precise, frequent, and effective than anything Russia can muster. The pain is now hitting Moscow's skies, Putin's control slipping away. Yevhen Diki, a former Ukrainian battalion commander, warns that this winter will mark a historic shift for Russia. Their once unbeatable air defenses are collapsing, overwhelmed by Ukraine's relentless technology and tactics. He claims that this will be the first truly symmetric winter in the conflict. Ukraine's defenses have been worn down to shadows of their former strength, but Ukraine is fighting back fiercely. Their strikes are growing larger, more successful, striking deep into Russian territory. November 25, reports confirm, Ukrainians targeted Moscow itself. The recent strikes aren't isolated incidents. Just days before, reports emerged of Ukrainian drones hitting a power station just 75 miles east of the Kremlin. The fire caused chaos, lights went out, heating stopped, and residents shivered in the cold. Ukrainian drones penetrated the heart of Moscow's energy infrastructure. The Russian authorities admitted some damage, though they kept blaming accidents and emergencies. But how could mere debris cause such widespread destruction? Transformers the size of a small house caught fire because a drone managed a direct hit. The pattern is clear: Ukraine's precision delivers devastating blows deep into Russia. This isn't happening by chance. October saw a surge in strikes across the Moscow region, drones approaching from the south, hitting critical power and heat facilities. Many believe the recent blackout was caused by these drone attacks, not just accidents. Witnesses described streets plunged into darkness, city lights flickering out suddenly, a deafening silence replacing the usual hum of life. The region's residents are left cold and powerless while Ukraine's drones fly freely, evading defenses. The air is thick with the smell of smoke and burning metal, proof that Ukraine's tactical reach is now nearly unbeatable. The reality is grim for Moscow. Russia's newest defenses, while formidable near the city, do little to protect the vast Moscow Oblast. To the south and west, new rings of radar and missile systems are being built at a feverish pace, yet, most are focused on ensuring Putin's safety and defending the city itself. The sprawling region, covering over 44,000 square kilometers, remains largely exposed. The Kremlin's priority seems to be protecting its core, leaving the rest of the region vulnerable. And with each successful Ukrainian strike, the cracks in Russia's armor widen. What does that say about the true state of Russia's military firepower? Could Moscow's sovereignty itself be slipping through its fingers? The answers are lurking just beyond the horizon, waiting to shock us all.